Shalom, shalom. Davon Mays here with Clouds of Torah presents the infancy narratives of Matthew and Luke, part two. And just a real quick backdrop of what's happening. Last time we talked about how Joseph immediately went to Egypt after the dream. So in the expositor's Greek Testament, in Matthew 2:14, it says Joseph promptly executes the command before the day, indicating alarm as well as obedience. The words of the command in Matthew 2:13 are repeated by the evangelist in Matthew 2:14 to emphasize the obedient spirit of Joseph. So some will try to say, well, he didn't immediately go to Egypt, which would mean that's how he had time to do everything that Luke said. But according to the expositor's Greek Testament, they're saying no. And I would show more examples of this in a previous video. Joseph had the dream. Soon as the Magi left, went right to Egypt. So Luke's story about the narrative, um, going to the temple and all that couldn't have happened. So let's get into this. So this is the infancy narratives of Matthew and Luke, part two. The other piece of this is, when did Herod die? Ellicott's commentary for English readers. It says until the death of Herod, right? That's when that's what's going on in Matthew chapter 2. That the reason why he had to leave Egypt, he had to wait for Herod to die because, according to the story, Herod was trying to kill the baby. So it says the uncertainty which hangs over the exact date of the nativity hinders us from arriving at any precise statements as to the interval thus described, as the death of Herod took place a little before the Passover BC 4, according to the common but erroneous reckoning. It could have not been more than a few months, even if we fixed the nativity in the previous year. Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges. Until the death of Herod, according to the chronology adopted above, this will be for a space of less than 2 years. So if he left and he didn't come back for 2 years, if he left that night and he didn't return for 2 years, there's no way Luke's narrative could have happened. Because Luke said they went to the temple, they did the sacrifices, he got circumcised, and they went every year after that for the Passover in Jerusalem. That's what it says. Matthew Poole's commentary. We are not told into what part of Egypt Joseph went, nor how long he stayed there. Some say 6 or 7 years, others, but 3 or 4 months. So my comment on this is 3 months is longer than the 8 days to be circumcised and 33 days to give sacrifices in Jerusalem. So she couldn't have went, Mary could not have been in Jerusalem within the 33 days to give her sacrifices if she was there longer than 3 months. Right? And if it's 6 or 7 years, the Luke story definitely could not have happened. I mean, it doesn't work. They brought him to Jerusalem, Luke 2:21-24. And when the 8 days were completed for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Jesus, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Now, when the days of her purification according to the law of Moses were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every male who opens the womb, who shall be called holy to the Lord, every male who opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. So according to the law, she had 33 days, right? It says when the days of her purification according to the law were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem. So if he was not there for years or months, not 1 month, not 2, but 3 or 4 months, according to some say 6 or 7 years, others but 3 or 4 months, right? There's no way they could have been at the temple after 33 days. So let's talk about this 33 days. Leviticus 12, 1 through 4. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a woman has conceived and born a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as in the days of her customary impurity, she shall be unclean. And on the 8th day of the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. She shall then continue in the blood of her purification 33 days. So there we got the circumcision of 8 days and the 33 days of her impurity. If they went to Egypt before the 33 days was up, they would have had to return to go to the temple, according to Luke. If they went to Egypt after going to the temple, then Luke's version will be false because he said they went to Nazareth after they left the temple. Nothing about Egypt. So either way you look at this, Egypt is not in Luke's narrative at all. Luke 2:39. So they had performed all things according to the law of the Lord. They returned to Galilee, to their own city, Nazareth. So if they didn't go to Egypt before, because they wouldn't have had time to come back, they definitely didn't go after, because it says they went to their own city, Nazareth. Luke claims to have had the best account, not given to him by prophecy or Holy Spirit, but by eyewitnesses. According to his, read Luke chapter 1, 1 through 5. He tells you, eyewitness would have mentioned Egypt to Luke, or did they not see that happen? There's no way they could have saw Joseph take the baby to Egypt and not come back for 3 months at the minimum, which is 90 days, right? 84 if we're using February days, right? Right? What was that? Yeah. If we going off of February with just the 28 days, the minimum, there's no way. I think my math is right. If not, check me. So this is what Luke says in Luke 1, 1 through 4. Inasmuch as many have taken in hand to set in order a narrative of those things which have been fulfilled among us, just as those who were from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to us. It seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write to you an orderly account, most excellent Theophilus, that you may know the certainty of those things in which you were instructed. So I'm not going to get into Theophilus. Check out the Exodus project. Me and Steve covered that pretty good, talking about who was Theophilus, all the Romans that were involved in the gospel writings. Check out the Exodus project. Check out the playlist. Me and Steve cover a lot of that. Shout out to Steve from the Exodus project. So he says they were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word delivered them to us. There couldn't have been an eyewitness to him going to Egypt and not returning if people saw him. The eyewitnesses saw Jesus get circumcised and go to the temple within the 33 days. There's no way. It's just not possible. Remember, he says, after investigating everything carefully from the very first, to write an orderly account for you. After investigating everything carefully. So Luke is saying he did his due diligence, right? So an orderly investigation would not leave out Egypt and Herod killing babies. These are crucial to Matthew's account and timeline that should line up with Luke. Luke says nothing about Magi, no star, nothing about Joseph being afraid to go to Judea. None of that. So he didn't investigate a whole bunch. He has a completely different account. It's not like he's citing Matthew and saying, yep, when Matthew says this, this also happened in my account. No, he's telling a whole different account. That's the problem here. Luke 2:39 through 41. So when they had performed all the things according to the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own city, Nazareth. And the child grew up and became strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. Not one word about Herod or Egypt. And he went to Jerusalem every year for the Passover since he was born. Matthew says Joseph was afraid to go to Judea, where Jerusalem is, so we have another problem. Luke does not get this from his eyewitnesses. It says Jesus grew up in Nazareth. Nothing about him going down into Egypt, right? What happened? It's just not there. This eyewitness account says that he returned to Galilee, to their own city, Nazareth. Not a word about Herod. Not being scared or nothing. Not being threatened or nothing as a baby. Matthew has a whole nother account, right? And there's a bunch of problems here. Matthew 2:19-22. Now, when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Now, remember, how long before Herod died? Minimum, people say 3 months or 6 or 7 years later. So, again, if it's 3 months, they couldn't have been in Jerusalem doing the circumcision and getting the doing the giving the sacrifices for Mary, right? Here's the problem. Here's another problem. They were told, we're going to tell you, God, the account says Joseph was going to be told when to come back when the people who sought to kill the baby were dead, right? So it says, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, appeared to Joseph in Egypt. The angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise, take the young child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. So he's basically saying, you're good. Nobody wants to kill the baby no more. Go back to Israel. Then he arose, took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. They didn't go to Jerusalem. They went to the region of Galilee. Now remember, arise, take the young child and his mother and flee to Egypt and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. Right? Here's the kicker. It says, the angel said, take the young child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. So why is Joseph afraid of Archelaus if those who seek the life of the child are dead? Why would God tell him to go back if it wasn't safe? What's going on? Those who sought the young child's life are dead. But he heard Archelaus was reigning. Now he's scared again. And it says he got a dream. He turned aside into the region of Galilee. If he was afraid to go to Judea, they could not have gone to Jerusalem for the Passover every year. Luke 2:41 says his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. If he's afraid of Archelaus reigning over Judea, why would he go to Jerusalem every year for the feast of the Passover? And Matthew said he was scared to go there. Right? Matthew said he's afraid to go there. What's going on? These two narratives could not have taken place. Arise, take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt and be there until I bring thee word. Either the angel told them to return to Jerusalem before the death of Herod, at least 33 days later, But that's not what the commentaries say, right? Or they went after, but Joseph was afraid to go there, although the angel said he would tell them to come after those who sought to kill the child were dead. Who was he afraid of? Archelaus, right? But it says those who sought to kill the child are dead. So he got bad information from the angel. Why would he be scared? The angel said, those who sought the young child's life are dead. So why are you afraid that Archelaus was reigning over Judea? The angel gave you assurance. The people who want to kill Jesus, they're dead. Nothing to be afraid of. But then God warns you in a dream to go to Galilee. That's weird. What's also interesting, this is kind of a side note, but was this around the time of Judas of Galilee, the other person who had a bunch of followers whom the Romans killed and all his followers were scattered, according to Acts chapter 5? Is it possible that's why he was told to go to Galilee? I don't know. Just something to throw out there because people always know about Judas, the betrayer, but they don't know a lot about Judas of Galilee in the New Testament in Acts chapter 5. Read it. He was somebody special too at that time, right? So, who was Joseph afraid of? Archelaus. Why though? He was assured that those who wanted to kill Jesus was dead. Herod was dead. So why would he be afraid? They never go back to Jerusalem according to Matthew, which would make Luke's account inaccurate. Because Luke said they went every year. Let's read it again. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. That's odd. Because it says he turned aside and went to the region of Galilee. He was afraid to go to Judea. So there's no way to go to Jerusalem every year. Matthew 19:1. It happened when Jesus had finished these words, he departed from Galilee and came into the borders of Judea beyond the Jordan. There's borders. They're not the same place. He departed from Galilee and came into the borders of Judea. So there is a clear distinction between Galilee and Judea according to Matthew. There is a border. Matthew 2:22. When he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father, Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. So Galilee and Judea are not the same place. He was scared to go to Judea, right? There's a border. Came into the borders of Judea. There's a distinction there. It's not the same place. These are two different stories, and the Holy Spirit was not the author. Luke 2:41. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. Matthew 2:22. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside into the region of Galilee. If Jesus was born in Bethlehem and went to the temple with his parent 33 days after his parents 33 days after his birth, there is no time to go to Egypt and return unless Herod died within 33 days, which Luke says nothing about. If they went after visiting the temple, they could not have gone to Jerusalem every year because Joseph was afraid. He went to a whole nother spot. Conclusion. John and Mark have no infancy narrative because they each hold on, how do I word this? John and Mark have no infancy narratives because they each represent a different Jesus. That's a side note. The Jesus in the book of John and the Jesus in Mark is completely different. There's no baptism in John. There's just if you read John by itself and then read Mark, you see two different Jesuses, right? The Passover dates are different. Like the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke are completely different from the book of John. But they don't have no Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem is not Bethlehem ain't even mentioned in the book of Mark. So Luke and Matthew has Jesus in two different countries at the same time with two separate lifestyles. One living in Galilee and never going to Judea, and the other living in Galilee and going to Jerusalem yearly. Luke leaves out Herod killing babies and Jesus going to Egypt. Matthew says they never returned to Jerusalem out of fear. But why? The angel said the people who want Jesus dead have died. Matthew 2:19-20. Now, when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. So it says those who sought the young child's life are dead. So Archelaus would have been a part of the those. If he was a threat, then it says the angel said those who seek the child's life they're dead. So it doesn't make any sense. So you have the references, look up the region, do the timelines, see when Herod really died, read the stories separate, take your notes, don't believe nothing I said. These are two different stories in Matthew and Luke. We know Mark and John don't have the infancy narratives, right? The we ain't even got to really touch on the false doctrine of the virgin birth. I got videos on that. I have a book on that on Amazon. I even have, it's too much information to say, well, this did happen, but no, these two stories could not have happened. They couldn't have. There's no way to clean them up. There's no way. So with that, I will see y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in, and shalom to y'all.